In this video, we're going to be looking at the law of cosine, so feel free to follow along in your notes packet, filling around some information about the law of cosines. So again, the law of cosines is a tool to find missing parts in triangles that are not right triangles. We can use it in right triangles, but we have other tools that are more efficient, so we would probably not choose to. So the law of cosines is this formula that you can see here. And if you just look at that first part, it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared, which is just our Pythagorean theorem. So all the law of cosines is an adjustment to the Pythagorean theorem so that it can work with non-right triangles. The Pythagorean theorem only works with right triangles, so we have this adjustment of minus 2 times a times b times the cosine of c. One big thing with the law of cosines versus the Pythagorean theorem, we talked a lot about how C in your Pythagorean theorem has to be the hypotenuse. The important thing about C in the law of cosines is that C has to be the side that's opposite angle C. So it doesn't have to be the longest side, it just has to be the side that relates to either the angle you're trying to find or the angle that you know. So when can we use the law of cosines? We can use it to solve a triangle if you are given all three sides of the triangle. So that's side, 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 know all three sides, or two sides in their included angles. So that's two sides of the angle between them. So it's a little different than the two sides in the angle that we had for law of sines, because you can see in neither of these examples, we don't have an angle opposite a side that we know. So we can't set up that proportion to use the law of sines. So we're going to use this altered Pythagorean theorem, the law of cosines instead. So let's see how that works. So our first example here, we're looking at finding this lowercase c, which is the side opposite c. So you can see here we have side AC, angle C, and side CB. So it's a side angle side. It's a good candidate for the law of cosines. You can also rule out the law of sines because we don't know a side and its opposite angle. So since we're looking for this side AB, that is opposite this angle 37, so that is what's going to be the C, or the thing that's by itself in our equation. And really the hardest part about the law of cosines is the setup. So we want to make sure that we're setting this up correctly and making sure we have all those pieces in the right spot. So we have C is opposite angle 37, so that cosine of big C, that's where your 37 goes. And then it's a squared, so one of the sides, that could be the 8 or the 11, it doesn't matter. Plus the other side squared minus 2 times one side times the other side times the cosine of 37. So really take a moment to look at those pieces and where they came from in your triangle, and make sure that you know how that's set up and how we can put that together. So once we're there, the law of cosines is really just a calculator problem, because everything on the right-hand side of the equation here, you can just type into your calculator. And when you do that, you will get that c squared is about 44.44. Once you know c squared, all we have to do is take the square root. So again, you can use the second squared button to do that on your calculator. It'll give you the square root. And then make sure you're using the second negative sign so that you get the answer. So you're taking the square root of that previous answer to keep your answer as exact as possible until we get to the end. We should get that c is about 6.67. Looking back at my triangle, 37 is a pretty small angle, so it being the smallest side does make sense in our triangle. Okay, this next one here, we're looking at finding angle M. So before we do that, let's just take a look at our triangle here. So we have all three sides. We have side, side, side. If we're trying to find angle M, the most important thing is to identify what is C. So that thing by itself, and the thing by itself is always the thing opposite the angle we're looking at. So if we're looking at angle M, the side opposite is that 8. So that 8 is the thing that needs to go by itself. So again, the setup is very, very important in the law of cosines. The 8 is by itself because that's the side that's opposite the angle we're looking at. And then the other two sides don't matter. It could be 12 squared plus 10 squared or 10 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 12 times 10 times the cosine of m. So you can see here we're going to have to do a little bit more algebra to get that cosine of m by itself. So just be really careful that you're following your order of operations. You could simplify 8 squared, 12 squared, 10 squared, and 2 times 12 times 10 if you want to right away. I usually just do a little bit of the algebra before doing that. So we're adding 12 squared and 10 squared, so we need to subtract them. and to get them to the other side because our goal here is to get that m by itself. So once we do that, if you simplify that, you get negative 180 equals negative 240 cosine m. So I got those two numbers by taking 8 squared minus 10 squared minus 12 squared. That's negative 180. You can just type that in your calculator. And the negative 240 is that negative 2 times 12 times 10. This is a place that I often see issues with the law of cosines, is people wanting to put all of those numbers together. Remember that we have to do the multiplication times the cosine m before you can combine those things. So get rid of your a squared plus b squared to the other side before you deal with that minus 2ab. Once we're here, it's easier to see that this is negative 240 times cosine m. So then we're just going to divide by 240. So negative divided by negative, we have a positive. We could simplify that if we want to, but again, you don't have to, because our goal here is to get that m by itself. So again, we're going to have to undo our trig function by using the cosine inverse. So if we take the cosine inverse of 80 over 240, or if you simplify that, that's fine too, we'll get the measure of angle m is about 41.4 degrees. So make sure you're following along with your calculator, trying these on your own to make sure that you are getting the correct things in your calculator. Make sure you're really careful about your setup with the law of cosines, as well as following your order of operations carefully. So that is it for our law of cosines notes here, and now you should be all set to try some on your own. So thank you for watching.